6:35 p.m. on the 22nd of March, 2021. And I would like us all to stand, please, so we can pledge allegiance. I think Dana's got a flag. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll do roll call. Dave Hemingway.
Present.
Dee?
Present.
Dave. Great, thank you. Before we begin, I would like to mention the incredibly beautiful service for Sindel on Saturday morning. Dave, were you involved in making that virtual?
Yep, I was there with my iPad and we were streaming that, and Russ was getting the Zoom going and the YouTube, so we were able to get it from end to end and get it out there.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. There were 89 other people besides myself watching virtually. And I think that the great majority of everybody was there until the very, very end. It was beautiful and it was moving and heartfelt and so sad. And I thought that the fire department did an amazing job decorating that space and putting those pictures up of Sindel and her life and the family's life together. And I don't know, I thought it was beautiful. So
yeah, there were a bunch that watched live, but obviously the intended effect for folks that, were on duty, et cetera, has kicked in. It's well over 600 views at this point.
Isn't that wonderful? So that's great. That's great. Okay, seasonal road posting is first on the list. So who is speaking to this?
Already done.
Yeah, normally we just want the select board to bless the seasonal road opening to vote to post the roads. It has been done.
Yeah, it's more of an announcement that it has been done, I believe.
Yes, yeah.
And it has been done. Let it be so and go forth on these roads.
Without drowning your car.
Without drowning your car.
Can't undo it at the moment, yeah.
Okay, so we have John Pearson up first. Tara. So John is applying for a temporary RV occupancy permit.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay.
It's not really an RV. It's a regular motorhome. I mean, not a motorhome, but a house trailer.
Oh.
But it's not it's not an RV.
It's a mobile home.
Right.
A mobile home. Okay. Well, all right.
The motorhome's already in town.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
So I just, the problem is I was going to try to rebuild at my place. And I'm having a problem trying to get a reconstruction loan with my place still standing. And with COVID and the price of materials today, it's just totally nuts with the price of materials.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to we got our own sawmill, so I want to try to cut my own lumber, dry it, and do my own materials to build a house. Well, it's going to take some time. I'd like to try to restore that, move that covered bridge to a different location instead of tearing it down. When it burnt, it was condemned. But it's going to cost some money to put a whole new roof on it. Right now, you're just taxing me as a garage. Because of the historical value, for me, maybe it's worth a lot more to me because my great aunt bought that bridge when it was still spanning the river and made a house out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It is the only bridge in the world that was made into a house. I'd
So,
like to
so,
try to salvage it if I can, instead of tearing it down.
Absolutely.
good, good.
But I don't know if that's possible. It's all money, it's time. And still be able, so I ain't saying that I'm gonna be able to move this trailer in there in a year and be done with it. I can't say that. It may take 2 years. Because of me having to try to save the bridge, cutting my own materials to build my house.
Mhm. So Dana,
Yes.
what is our policy about having a motor home on a property?
Well, I think I'll refer to Russ for that. Russ, why don't you just,
So the policy is that we can't have two occupied dwellings on the same lot. As since one of them has been burnt down, it would be only one
Yeah,
home. So I don't know if it's not a temporary home or is it going to be more of a permanent home? 'Cause-
It's temporary, so I can get a new place built.
Okay.
It ain't no different than what we did up on Little Hill when George Little's family estate burnt. And they allowed a trailer up there for 2 years while they rebuilt.
Yeah.
mhm.
Because generally the temporary occupancy permit is good for 90 days and it has to be renewed by the select board every 90 days.
Well, you allowed one up
Well-
on Little Hill a couple of years ago. It set
Oh.
up there for 2 years. They never did a 90-day permit. That's for a camper. You have a permit, a policy for RVs for 90 days. This is not an RV.
No, John, just let us talk for a minute, okay? I think we want to help you. So I think, given the circumstances here, and this is just my opinion, but given the circumstances, I think that he should be given an extended period of time. If John feels that he needs 2 years, my suggestion would be to let this be a permit for 2 years. And then at the end of 2 years, John, if you're not settled yet, then at that point you would need to apply. Fair enough?
Sounds fine with me.
Okay, what do Dave and Dee, what do you think?
Are
Well,
we able to put an arbitrary date on it, or do we have a limitation for lengths of time?
Looking at that right now.
Okay.
I have one question to John. It's going to be attached to your water and your septic, right? The mobile home?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've
So
already got a
it's
septic system there.
I'm sorry.
There's already a septic system and an artesian well and
Yeah,
everything's
right.
already
That's
there.
right. So that's what I figure. You're going to just live in there while you're working on the other one. So
Right.
I find no problem with that.
And I'm perfectly fine with it. As far as lengths of time, we'll see what Russ comes back with, but I'm perfectly fine with a longer period of time as well.
Yeah, I mean, these are quite extenuating circumstances. So,
I think we could figure out how to get around that, Russ. So why don't you
I
and I
agree.
do that? And if the board votes on 2 years, we'll know what the date is.
well, I would move to allow John Pearson to have a motor home on his property for 2 years, say
Mobile
from
home.
a
Mobile home.
mobile. What did I say?
Motor.
Okay, a mobile home for 2 years, beginning today. Is that fair? 2 years from today. If John, if you need more time, then you'd come back to the board.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right. Any more discussion?
I believe that should also include the phrase temporary occupancy permit, because it's not to necessarily just put it on the property, but also to be allowed to live in it.
I agree. I think that
Well-
makes sense.
Okay, good.
That was
So I think we should
idea.
include that into the motion, but then yes, I would be fine with all of that.
Okay. So, all in favor of the motion as amended?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, John.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you, guys. and
Thank you.
ladies.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, to town properties.
Uh,
Um,
Excuse me,
yes,
since we are unmuted, I would suggest that in the minutes that you spell John's name Jon. I noticed
Appreciate
on
that,
the
George.
agenda, it's John. And that's not the right John.
right.
Appreciate that, George.
Hey, take care.
Okay, thanks, George. Chelsea, you're here, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so thanks for being here. So you tell us what you want to do over there. The property in question, I think, is at the head of Rumford and
General
Hmm.
Stark.
General Stark. That's right.
Yes, that's correct. I own the house that abuts that property, and we're hoping to be able to expand our yard, have a garden, and maybe eventually build a garage. Definitely not right now, but we're hoping to in the future, maybe build a garage. But mostly for my garden.
Looking at that lot, Chelsea, it's quite rocky and steep and heavily treed. So it is your idea to remove all the trees and do a lot of excavation and flatten it out?
Potentially at least some of it. My boyfriend's grandfather does that for a living, so he would come over and assess it prior to actually getting started.
Mm-hmm. Russ, this was one of the lots that we made some remarks on, I believe.
Yes, it was, Chris, and let me just get that in front of me, please.
Okay, me too. I'm looking here.
The remark, unless I'm looking at the wrong thing, is to leave it as open space.
Yeah.
Which a garden sounds like that would be a pretty good open space use.
Well, garden is very different from open space, actually. If you
Well,
if you
yes.
look, yeah, I mean that it's heavily treed and it's a steep bank and there's some wet area down below. So I know that there are some members of the Conservation Commission here. And I don't know if anybody's been over there to see this. Town properties. So Willette, here we go. Gosh, took me forever. Yeah, so Chelsea, do you have the property above that going toward General Stark?
No, I'm on Rumford Drive.
Oh, you're the one right alongside of it.
Yeah,
Oh,
right up on the street.
Got it. So so you might actually be able to put a garage that's a little bit flatter down in there, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's right. And so perhaps you could leave a good deal of the trees and rocks and so on. No.
That's kind of the plan. If we were to do it, we would pretty much put it right on the edge of our driveway, closer to our house rather than, and then the land itself would pretty much stay the same. I mean, we have a puppy that likes to run in the woods.
Right.
So we probably let him out there, but.
So, Russ, you supplied everybody with a, the selling of land policy that we have. And according to that, we would have to, well, let me ask Chelsea, first of all, what are you proposing to purchase the land for in terms of money?
I mean, I don't know what a fair market price for it would be.
Okay.
I've kind of done some research, and it tends to be based off of like back taxes and all of that, but I couldn't find that sort of information.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I don't know if you guys had a price in mind.
No, not right now. Russ, have you been able to pull up anything on that particular lot?
So Dana was the one working on the town properties project. So he would have the information for you.
Okay.
The town took it on a tax deed. The amount owed was $239.78. And since then, of course, there's been lost taxes and things like that, but the lot is valued at $2,000.
The lot is valued at 2,000.
It's assessed for $2,000.
Okay. Okay.
It's a third of an acre.
I would wonder if that's been updated, if that's been not updated because it was town property, but
That's possible. Although it should have been updated.
Hi, Jesse. Yeah, a third of an acre. That's right. That's right. So, is there anybody from conservation that is familiar with that property? I think Linda and maybe Betsy
Yes.
I think it was that corner lot right at the top of Rumford that has a whole bunch of rocks in it on one end, and then it flattens out toward Chelsea's house. And it's quite a lovely lot, actually. But it's a third of an acre. And one of the goals, since I've been on the board anyway, and I think before that actually, has been to, when abutters have an interest in a lot, to try to encourage lots to be annexed to abutters. So.
And it looks like.
Thanks, Dana.
It looks like, oh yeah, there's the map. So I was going to just say that it's 0.49 acres of theirs and then the 0.33 acres for this.
Right. The blue is Chelsea's lot and the green is the town's lot.
Right.
Huh.
So when did the town take that for unpaid taxes, or what was that?
It was taken for unpaid taxes, and
In what year, you know?
let me find that out. I can do that pretty easily.
Okay, easier than me.
I don't move around as good as Russ does on this. I'm getting closer by the moment.
Okay,
We've had that lot for quite some time, 2001.
oh, wow.
Good heavens. So computing
So 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years, that's 20 years of no taxes. I mean, when Chelsea, if we're able to work something out here, it will be nice to have that land essentially on the tax rolls again. So in terms of the board's desire here, do both of you think that this is a good idea to pursue this?
Yeah, I think it's good to have the abutters doing it. I just figured roughly, if we were getting the tax, we've lost $47.95 in taxes on 20 years on that lot.
27.
$47.95, $4,795
Okay,
in lost taxes. So I don't know if you should get a realtor in there to kind of give us, I don't know what property is going for around. I mean, I know property is going like crazy for anything, but for everything. So, but I noticed it's something here, selling a properties policy.
Mhm.
It said something about sold through auction, realtor, or sealed bids.
I would say that the policy, this property, I don't believe is a buildable lot. So obviously it would have some value restrictions
Okay,
to buy that. So I would say if we were going to sell it, I would say a sealed bid would be the best method.
I would agree with that. And there is, being a corner of a Y, there are two abutters that could actually do what we generally request in Pillsbury Lake, which is the voluntary merger of the lots when purchased. So it would be one other person that we would make sure would know that that was an option and was being available. But then, yeah, sounds good to me.
well, that sounds fair to me.
Yeah, I would suggest that it obviously there's missing taxes, but then there's back taxes owed. And so I would suggest that we start bidding at the back taxes owed, not at missing taxes that just no one ever would have gotten charged. And they can bid on it. That would be my looking at how to do it fairly.
Now, what do you mean nobody got charged taxes? When, I mean, like
So
I
the
just,
town owns it. So with the town owning it, no one's getting a tax bill. So
So
the
David,
taxes are missing. But
are you saying a minimum bid of the amount of taxes that the town took it for?
yes.
no, that's, oh, I don't know. I don't think that's a little bit too cheap, but that was 20 years ago. What is a lot now in Pillsbury Lake go for? What is a house lot? I have no idea because they're so small. But 20 years, I mean, they must be paying a lot more on their property 20 years later.
Well, so Dana, you said this was worth how much on the assessment?
2,000.
So the lot is assessed at 2,000. And as Dana mentioned, it sounds like it's not a buildable lot. So that would drop the value of it, even though it's a fairly reasonable sized lot for Pillsbury Lake. So
Land is valuable.
I'm fine with, I'm more about the process, and the absolute minimum should be what is owed in the taxes. And if you folks have better ideas for valuations for a starting bid that is higher than that, I'm perfectly open to that. I just don't have a way of me looking at it and saying that's the value it should be.
so Betsy,
Why is it an unbuildable lot? Is that because it's so steep and rocky? I think I visited that lot a long time ago. I wonder if we should have another look at it to see if I wonder why it's unbuildable. I think is it a ravine but I'm not sure.
it's
I can't tell you. I don't know. Chelsea
One-
might know.
one half of it is filled with boulders,
Huh.
which makes it really quite lovely. And lots of hemlocks.
Oh.
And then the other half sort of glides down toward Chelsea's house and flattens out quite a bit. So, I think that we recommended this lot remain an open space because it has some there's some wildlife value there. I mean, there's the wildlife possibilities over at Pillsbury Lake, are few and far between. And so, there's some value, but if Chelsea's intent is to leave the bouldery part alone, that would give her the security of knowing that nobody would build on it anyway, Chelsea, but it would give her the opportunity to have a garage next to her driveway, which makes sense. And leaving the back part of it alone. I would want that. It's pretty special over there, I think.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of land.
Mm-hmm. So, just to be clear, Dana, so the minimum that the bids would start at would be what, 2,000, or would it be 4,700?
Well, the minimum would be set by the board. I mean, you could set the minimum wherever you felt comfortable with it.
Right.
We were just talking about the amount that we would like to recover for lost taxes. And then, of course, it's been a number of years since we've been getting taxes, which I haven't calculated. But we could get together and decide what to set as a minimum, and then put the lot out for a bid with the hopes that Chelsea bids on it.
Okay.
And that would go along with the town's policy. It was, this was part of the 2017 study that the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission did. And as you know, it was suggested to leave it as open space.
Right. So here's what I would suggest. Why don't we figure out what that lot might go for? I'm talking out loud here. We might be able to get a realtor who lives over there. Allison Scott is over there. She might be able to help us out on this. And then perhaps Betsy, if you wanted to go back over there and take a look at it, maybe you and Dan could go over. I don't think Dan's ever seen it.
Okay.
Take a look at it. And Chelsea, the intent is to see how we can help you on this.
Okay.
And it'll just take us a little bit of time, maybe by the time of our next select board meeting.
Okay.
We'll be able to have an answer for you.
When is the next meeting?
It's in 2 weeks from tonight.
Okay.
April 5th, I think.
April 5th, exactly.
Okay.
And then Dana, maybe you could try to calculate what the back taxes are
Okay.
on this thing.
The lost revenue.
Yeah, the lost revenue. And then we can come up with a base number, I think, because I don't know. I don't know enough to set any figure for a lot over there. I think we need a little bit of help on this.
I think Allison Scott would probably be good. And if she doesn't want, I'm sure she would do it. But if she doesn't want, I know a lot of realtors that would just give us some kind of a heads up for no cost.
Yeah. Yep. So, Chelsea, so Dave, what do you think?
I like the idea. I just want to clarify that back taxes is one thing. That's the amount that's still owed. And then lost revenue is what was never billed because the town owns it and the town doesn't pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So just to clarify the difference for everybody that's here looking.
Yeah. Okay, so Betsy, you and Dan are going to go out and see the property. Do you think you know where it is?
I think so.
You have to go up Centennial.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Okay, and then Chelsea will put you on the agenda for 2 weeks from tonight.
Okay, that sounds great. And then it's gonna basically go to bid between me and my backyard neighbor.
Maybe, if they have any interest in it, but
Or
Yeah,
Okay.
basically that would be the expectation.
okay. All right, and you guys will reach out to them.
We will reach out to them. Yes. Okay.
Well, that sounds great. I look forward to hearing from you guys in a couple weeks.
Okay. Thanks
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay. So we have sort of a plan on that one.
Yes, we do.
We have a plan. And then we've got Phil. Are you
Hi
here?
there. Yep, yeah.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
that's you. You're the iPad guy.
Yep.
Okay. So
With the
Phil, now,
wonderful moon in the background.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
outside. enjoying
It's
the weather.
great. It's great seeing that moon. So Phil, I went over to the road that's south of you, where those properties are, and of course you can't drive up there.
Yep,
because
it's not accessible.
It's not accessible. So basically, what you would be doing is adding to your backyard.
Yes. It'll
Mhm.
connect all my properties all together.
Hmm. Yeah, you're beginning to have a kingdom over there, Phil.
Oh, that and just because I want to, I get more sunlight in here. There's so many tall trees because I'm on the north side of the hill.
Hmm.
When the sun, goes out to the west, that's the late afternoon sun, and we get hardly any sun in the backyard as it is.
So what is your intent on these properties?
Just to own them outright.
Well, I mean, are you going to clear them?
Maybe a select cut, like a 35% select cut.
Hmm.
Because right now, I believe woods that are thick, it hurts the woods versus, having a select cut, it'll produce more nutrients for the trees, more open space for the smaller ones to grow up.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah. That now whoever logs it, unless it's you that's going to do the work, I don't know how they would get up there.
Probably from Newport Circle.
Okay.
Because
So
I own right here, if you look at the map, I own 74, 76, and 78,
hmm. Yeah.
which will, by getting these two, would tie in to all the properties. And also, this was on 3 to 4 years ago. This was on one of the ballots to be, these parcels of the land to be sold by the town, which you guys never had done.
I don't think we ever did that, right?
No.
No, we never got around to putting these up for sale.
Yeah.
So-
bid.
So how long, so Dana, do you know how long we have owned these properties?
We've owned them also for about almost 20 years, I think.
Mm,
And one of them was given to the town and one of them was taken by a tax deed.
mhm.
And the recommendation of the planning board and the conservation were to merge them together and
Mhm.
sell.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do we own other land there that we should also be merging it with at the same time before selling? Because it seems like if we've got one single lot, that it would make sense to have it all go as one thing and then merged in
Mhm.
with his land as well.
We
if
own
need to do it.
several lots there, so I certainly can. I'm not sure if there's anything contiguous, but I will research that.
I think 1-57AB was owned by a person also, and also by the town. When you look at the taxes,
Oh, okay.
What about 158?
I think someone still owns that, I believe.
Oh. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's beautiful land up there. Just really.
Actually, 58, that was the lot that was given to the town last fall. So the
Oh.
town does own 58.
Wow.
We have 56 AB as well, according to the chart that I'm looking at. And also 48. So it looks like we have both. We've got one in the middle, one at each end of the opposite side of the paper road here, as well as
Right.
the corners and these lots.
Mm-hmm. So 157 AB is owned by somebody?
I don't see it as town owned on my list, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's not. So
Right, right.
Yes, it's owned by somebody. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was. Okay. Well, Phil, I mean, do you have some interest in 158?
If you want to block it in, yeah,
You want to pay for it?
I don't know what the assessed values. I think it was 61 was assessed at 39 and the other one was at 3,100, I believe, on the taxes.
58 is 3,400.
Well, I guess by our town policy, we would have to contact the guy at 57 AB and see if he'd be interested in that lot. And the person at 81 AB. Do you know who that is, Phil?
That's Jamie Dow.
Oh, the Dows, right. The Dows own that.
let's see. It would also be, I guess, 63. Yeah, it looks like
And-
163 as well.
Yeah, there's a house
Yes,
there.
right. So if you have an interest in 58, then we'd have to contact those two abutters.
Oh, it's more about 61 and 59 I was interested in.
I know.
Yeah.
So you want to just keep it at 61 and 59?
Yeah,
Okay, then we don't, as Dave said, we'd have to contact the folks who have the house on 63.
yes,
Okay. And you heard, the same process we went through with Chelsea.
Yeah.
So we can do that.
because I know, oh, for sale, not having access road and all that, it's going to be, you can't extend the road because it's going to be too steep and it's all ledge up there.
Right. Right.
So the land is pretty much worthless, and the assessed value I think is high on both of them.
So I would suggest, or my thinking here is the town isn't going to want to hang on to just this tiny sliver of land that's up there that would be remaining with, I think it was 58. So I would suggest that the town do what's actually listed in the recommendation, which is to merge these lands first and then sell them as one lot. Because then we don't have one tiny little piece up in the middle of nowhere that the town is never going to be able to do anything with.
Well, if you want to include that.
Well, Dave, could we have that property map up again, please?
Sure.
So Dave, are you suggesting merging 59 and 61?
Well, and 58, which, unless I'm mistakenly thinking that we own it and we don't, but I believe it was said that we have 58 there as well, correct?
Yes, from you guys took it over last fall, according to Dana.
So I think we as the town should do the voluntary merger as suggested in the planning board and conservation recommendations in the town properties document. And we should merge 58, 59 and 61 and then sell it as a single lot. Because it would do no good to anybody to have 58 just sitting there as part of the town. We'll never do anything with it. Never be able to do anything with it.
Yeah, that's a good idea because it is a small lot anyway.
So my question then here is, by doing that, Phil, you know, first of all, I'm not sure if Phil wants to buy all that land. That's the
It
first thing,
depends on the price too.
right?
Because
Oh.
what I'm thinking and what you guys are thinking, you know, it could be two separate.
I don't think that Dave is suggesting that we merge the lots in order to put them on the market, because they're not reachable.
No,
And
I'm
so,
suggesting that it doesn't make sense for us to hang on to one tiny plot
Yeah.
when we've got
Okay.
several that are next to it.
okay, and so if our intent would be to sell those three as one, we would then have to notify 57AB, and 57AB and Phil could submit bids, blind bids. Is that what it's called?
Yep, we have a bid process,
Yeah,
or
sealed
we can
bids.
do it as a bid. Mhm.
Sealed
Yeah,
bid.
sealed bids. So Phil, how does that sound to you?
Good.
Good. So let's do this. Between now and our next select board meeting in 2 weeks, we'll figure out what, where the bidding should begin. And we'll notify 57AB and see if that person has any interest in, in 58, 59, and 61.
All right. I thought with when you purchase land from the town, you have to be a resident of the town, not landowner only.
I don't know. Good question.
That's how the sealed bids went out as in the past.
So
Well, it's
that
not in our policy,
have
but
to
we
be a
can certainly
resident.
look into that.
So Phil, the person that owns 57AB, he is not a New Hampshire resident or doesn't live in town?
It's just land.
Right, but
Somebody owns it.
somebody owns it, and does the person who owns it live in town?
I don't know.
Okay,
Because I thought, you have to have a home dwelling in order to purchase land from the town.
Where was that law?
Oh, when it went out to bids in the past, that's what was said before.
I don't recall that. I think that when
Well, we can do our homework for that.
we can do our homework. Phil, I think that, when the town has sold land to people, the people with an interest in that land have abutted the land. And so I think that that's possibly where home ownership entered into this, but we'll look into it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll put you on the agenda for next time too.
All right. So April 5th.
April 5th.
Okay. 6:30 again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Phil.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
Yep. You're welcome.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay. So we're making a lot of homework for ourselves here.
Excuse me.
Dana.
Excuse me, John Pearson here.
Yes, John.
Just like to bring one little point up on merging all these lots. You talk about these lots in the back that may not have interest to anybody else. I haven't walked these lots. I really don't know. But there may be interest in some of these lots for somebody else to buy for the lumber values on these, which they may pay a horrendous amount of money for the value of the lumber on these. A lot more money than you're going to sell for a merged lot. there may be $50,000 worth of lumber sitting on one of these back lots. There may be, I don't know.
Uh-huh. Well, it's very inaccessible.
You don't know what loggers can go into.
Well,
So I'll just say that that's one of the reasons why it is a bid process, so that it becomes public and other people may bid on it if they see value in it.
I understand, but the way you're trying to do this, if I understand, is you're merging these lots to sell to an abutter.
yes.
My goal would be to merge the lots so that when they sell together, instead of the town owning just a tiny sliver someplace that the town won't have access to.
Yes, but you're trying to sell them right now to a butter first. And now
That
you
is the
put these back
policy in
lots.
Pillsbury Lake.
Yes. But you're trying to put all these back lots all merged together. You see what my point is?
I think I understand your point.
So this bigger lot in the back may have a big chunk of money valuation to the town. To bring the town more money, more income.
You
Then-
mean have the town cut the wood on it?
No, you're gonna sell it to maybe some logger
Oh, okay, I got you.
that's gonna give you 10 times the money you're gonna get if you merge it and sell it to this little chunk. It's a possibility, I don't know. But you see where I'm going when you
Yeah.
merge these lots?
Well, I see your point of view. Yes. Thank you.
So maybe merging these lots ain't the best idea. It may be and it may not be. You need somebody to be able to walk these lots and say, hey, you got $100,000 worth of oak setting up on this lot. And we can't merge this.
Okay.
You could have $100,000 worth of oak setting on that lot.
Right. Well,
But
somebody would get that $100,000, right? It would not be the town. And then the town would
But
have,
the logger that buys that piece of land would pay for that piece of land. And he's gonna pay a big chunk of money for that.
yeah. Okay.
But when you merge it, you're not gonna get it.
Well,
That's my point.
yeah. Okay.
So you have to maybe not merge that and sell that lot separate. And
Okay.
sell it to a forester and put the value of that lumber out there. There's $100,000 worth of oak sitting on this lot. You're gonna have them type people come to buy it. You
Yeah.
see where I'm
Maybe
going
it's
with that?
so. Maybe this makes sense. I don't know for the board if they're interested in this or not, but maybe it makes sense to ask one of the loggers in town what a rough valuation could be, especially on lots this small, as additional information for when we're creating a minimum bid.
I've got 100,000 feet of lumber on 5 acres.
Well, this
Very small.
land, John, I'm sorry, this land altogether may comprise an acre. They look a lot bigger, you
That
know.
back lot looked pretty big to me.
I know it, but they're
These
not.
aren't the ones at the very end. We don't own this. The contiguous lots are 3 small slices that are
Small
up the
ones,
side
but
of
that-
the road.
Yes, the 3 small lots look pretty small, but that last lot that you talked about, that A lot, whatever number. it
That's-
The
was.
A lot
not-
isn't a
it's-
butter. It's not one that we own.
So
Okay.
I'd like to move on now, John. We will take what you've said into consideration. I
Good
promise.
enough. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on. We're getting to code enforcement, but we have to consider the Turcot request. I think that's what that is. Is that not right?
That is correct. So
Okay.
I received a Lomar F application about sometime last month, and it said Tom Bay on it. So I reached out to Tom Bay to ask him what was going on with this. He had no idea. I reached out to Race. She had no idea. And it kind of circled like that with me and Dana trying to figure out what was going on with this form until I eventually reached out to a planner from the New Hampshire Department of Strategic Initiatives, Samara, and she helped me with it. It is a floodplain request to to place fill on the property to bring the property up to a level where it's no longer in the flood zone for where they're going to build.
Mhm.
So she has gone through the application process with me and helped me determine all the qualifying features and what we should look for in order to approve or disapprove this. So basically what I have done with her is that I have submitted the maps, and she looked on the national floodplain maps and stated what the issues are. So it's not in the special hazard flood zone, which would require additional permitting. So they were able to move forward on that part. And the town's end, we have to require that they have received all the permitting from the various agencies before any fill can be placed as part of the development plan in order to construct the home. So at Samara's suggestion, I reached out to DES and verified that they had all the necessary permits, and they do. So at this point, I am bringing the request before the board to see if they will sign the conditional Lomar F request in order for the Turcots to move forward, in order for them to be able to eventually submit a building permit where we will grant them the permission to place the fill if it is approved.
So thank you for doing that work. I went over there today, for the third time to try to find this lot. Can't find the lot, although, it's right on the river, but it's really right at the end of Frost Lane. From looking at the plans, yes, they are bringing in a lot of fill, 11,000 square feet, I think, of fill in the floodplain. And it is to be used to accommodate their septic system. So their septic system outflow pipe goes right into the gravel that is elevating this. And that's toward the river. That's troublesome to me. The other thing that's troublesome is that there are Blandings turtles and other kind of, there's another kind of turtle over there, wood turtle. And according to the application, the New Hampshire Fish and Game has to approve that this amount of fill will not endanger these endangered species. And I do not know yet whether they have gotten that permit. And I don't feel comfortable. I wouldn't personally feel comfortable okaying this until I know, or the Conservation Commission knows. And I don't know how the Conservation Commission has been brought into this, if at all. My concern here is are the endangered species that we know is over there.
So where is this? If you come down off Clothespin Bridge, it's way at the end of Frost Lane?
Way at the
After
end.
Jack Shawaziak's?
Yep, you pass Shawaziak's. Yep.
So it's the land after Shawaziak's place? There's 20 acres there or something like that?
It's not 20.
It's
Give me
very
1 second.
small.
It's a very small lot.
Very small lot. It's wooded.
So can you see this is the map here?
Yeah, I see the map. Yeah.
All right. So that's where it is. It's a very small lot. It's right at the end. Well, it's not quite at the end. It's the one right before the one at the end. And the proposed building zone is going to be about right here.
And the river is.
And the river's here.
That's the
And
river.
the blue is the floodplain.
And the blue is the
Oh,
floodplain.
okay.
So this is the map Samara submitted to me.
That is a beautiful map.
She did a good job. She was really helpful. But I was not aware of that permit for Fish and Game, and I can reach out to them and see if they have attained that permit. Because that is part of our process to make sure that they have attained every single permit
Yeah.
from all the agencies.
If you look at
will
the-
note that both of those species you mentioned, the Blandings and the wood turtle, are listed on the form at the bottom on the last page. I don't know if they've gotten any of those permits or not, but they're at least aware of that, so it should not be a surprise to ask about.
Yeah, the DES, I think, is aware. What I don't know is New Hampshire Fish and Game, the reptile guy.
Nope, that makes sense. Do you?
Yeah.
Well, if you have the contact for him, I would greatly appreciate it. If you have it, if not, I can figure it out and call Fish and Game.
I can get you the contact information.
Perfect.
So how big is this lot we're talking about?
I would have to look it up.
Roughly? An
So I don't have-
acre?
I don't have that right off the top of my head. Give me 1 second. It is almost an acre. It's 0.92.
And it's a lot.
So they
And-
can't go back farther in the, less than, farther back from the river for their septic and stuff.
Right.
Like
So
put
I can,
by
So
the
that-
river and put the septic back, way back.
so if you want, I can put that plan on the screen for you too. So you can see it.
Yeah.
I think
sure.
that they have a garage. I remember seeing a garage there.
I'm
So
trying to
looking
think.
at the
It's been a
plan,
long
there's a
time since I've
proposed
been-
garage and then a proposed house. The house is proposed to be right near the water. The garage is proposed to be basically
So-
the setback off of Frost Lane. And then off to the west side of that would be the septic.
So right
So
here.
here we go. So proposed garage, no bedrooms, bathroom only. And then the house is right up here. Right next to the slope. So here's their septic. And here's,
Chris,
yeah,
putting a garage next to the Blackwater River is bound to cause problems with salt and all sorts of things that drip off your
I
car.
think the house is right next to the river, Betsy. I think the garage is closer to Frost Lane. Am I
Okay.
I can't see.
Yes.
All right,
In this, Frost Lane is at the top and the river is at the bottom when you're looking at this
Yeah,
plan.
River.
it looked like the garage was next to the river. But
I know that it was mentioned the number of square feet of fill, but do we know, like, is this an inch worth or, a foot worth of fill that they're trying to put down?
I am not sure. I can ask that of them.
I think that would be useful information.
So I can email them tomorrow to get that information.
That would be great.
I don't,
Okay. So if we can get some of that cleared up, Betsy, and I think Dan is here too. Has this come before WCC yet?
no. A lot was being discussed at the Conservation Commission. I think maybe it was this one down at the end of Frost Lane and down to the left. It's
That's
sloped
it.
down
Yep.
towards the river.
I think I talked to Dan and Sue Roth about this lot previously.
Yes. I've been wanting to look at it, but I didn't know if I had permission.
Well, it's a private road that does not say no trespassing. So I don't know that any of us can walk on the land. But Betsy, it's a marvelous opportunity to get a jump on the season and hop in your kayak.
oh my God.
You trying to drown me?
I'll go with you.
Well, they're going to have that race, right? You can race right by it.
Yeah, the river's
Oh,
very
yeah.
full right now.
So, okay. All right. Well, Russ, if you'll look into those things for us, that would be great.
I can
And in
do
the-
that.
And in the meantime, if you don't mind, if Dan has not received a copy of these plans, could you make sure he gets them?
I can absolutely do that.
Thank you. Thank you. As a matter of course, it would be so helpful in the future if when a building permit request comes in and there's obvious impacts to wetlands, it would be so helpful to let the Conservation Commission in on that.
I
Absolutely.
thought they had the information because they got the shoreline permit before I ever even saw it.
Well,
That's how I found out it existed, was somebody
Okay.
from the Conservation Commission sent it to me.
Oh, okay. So Dan, wherever you are, you
And to be clear, this is not a building permit. That would come after this. And then still
Correct.
be-
This is
okay.
part of the building permit process. We haven't even got to that point yet.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. All right, Russ, so you can get back to us by our next meeting?
I will see if we can get an answer by next meeting. Hopefully the engineer will reach out to me.
Great.
But he's been waiting, so he probably will.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
So on code enforcement, Russ has been a busy guy. Dee and Dave, did you have a chance to look at what Russ has produced?
I
for
have
us?
looked through a lot of it. I have not gone in full detail on everything, but I've looked through a lot of it, and several of these we've seen in the past. For example, the procedures.
Mhm.
Have you modified the procedures since the last time we looked at them, Russ?
Not yet. I've been really focusing on getting that contract set up and working on the description to make it fit with what we have already approved and in place so it would jive. That's kind of what I've been doing for the last week or so.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So I called around to, or went online to five different towns around us, and got copies of their fees, which is in Russ's possession.
I have them.
Yeah, and so he's going to be working on that to sort of regularize our fees relative to other towns. And let's see. So under code enforcement, so you drafted a job description, and that was one of the things that Dave, you wanted to see. So Russ, you didn't add in my comment.
I changed some of them, but I haven't gotten to all of them yet.
Okay. So one comment that I had, which Dave and Dee can probably see, is the first comment in the upper right-hand corner. Under his position description, I wanted wetlands included. His duties will also include knowledge of wetlands, their identification, and the rules and regulations regarding them. Even though Russ has included about 3/4 of the way down, ensures that all construction and site disturbances comply with DES codes regarding wetlands, shorelands, and floodplains. Reports any potential violations to DES to review. And I think my comment there as well is that the Conservation Commission should also report any potential violations to the Conservation Commission as well, because we would be the ones to then go out and view those in coordination with DES. And I just want to make sure that, because this has been such an issue for a long time, that this gets included as part of his position description and his duties.
So my question for you with the works with WCC one, instead of just NHDES, would be that with the Conservation Commission not being an authoritative body like the others, and us not having passed an ordinance yet, do we have legal authority to do it that way? Because it sounds like it would have to only be DES, and then DES going out and they can request to work with you, from what my understanding was, as opposed to the other way around.
We are the eyes and ears of DES locally. And we are right now the local group that that works with DES to make sure that DES rules and regulations are being followed through. What has hampered us is not having somebody in a position of a code enforcement officer that would have the authority to go on a property and look at it. One of us, or I don't know actually how many, but a representative from the WCC can accompany the code enforcement officer. Since DES, I think they may have as many as 4 people for the entire state to go around and look at all sorts of potential violations. So in that sense, they rely on local code enforcement officers as well as local concoms. But you're right, Dave, we're not regulatory. We don't have the authority to cease and desist anybody or anything like that. All we have is a sort of a repertorial responsibility.
Okay. So my question there then would be, what is the appropriate legal way to handle this, as far as, is it works with WCC, or is it informs WCC of possible violations? And so I think there's a question there for what's the appropriate legal way to word it so that no one has a problem later on.
Well, I think Russ has done it correctly, actually. Reports any potential violations to DES. That is the first thing that needs to get done.
Right.
And that's fine. I think that's fine. But I would like to have a link there to the local conservation commission. We can put language like, also advise local conservation commission.
Okay, so like reports any potential violations to NHDES to review and forwards reports to the Conservation Commission.
That's great.
That makes sense.
That's great.
Sounds good to me.
Well, there was one other question that came up while we were doing this, because me and Dana were talking about it earlier, and it might be a nit and gritty part. But with the wetlands training, how is that going to be covered? Because we should put that in the contract. I don't know if anybody's reviewed the contract yet. But if we pay him $35 an hour, and we're going to pay them that during the training, and then also pay for the training on top of that, because that's something we need to take in consideration before we put somebody in the position and how that's going to get covered.
So each one of those trainings has a fee associated with it. First off, right? Those trainings are not free. And Betsy or Dan, correct me if I am not up to date on this. Usually attending one of their seminars, there's a cost involved. And the Conservation Commission has not specifically discussed this, but it's possible that the Conservation Commission may be willing, and I'm not speaking for the Conservation Commission, but may be willing to spend some of our vast resources putting the code enforcement officer through, and this is only, I know, Russ, this is only half of what you're asking. Part of it is Tom's time, and part of it is, from my view, the cost of the webinar or whatever it ends up being.
Right, because I figured that would be covered by the town. It's just how we're going to do it with the hourly rate on top of it.
Yes.
Because that's where I think the bigger cost is going to show up, because he gets $35 an hour.
Well, no,
Depending on the
from
course.
outside, and like if I'm doing, say, IT consulting or something like that, I get my certifications. So, or when I was still doing it, I would get my certifications so that I would be able to charge the amount that I was going to.
Mm-hmm.
So someone might cover the training because they're interested in me having it for a position, but I'm not making an hourly rate for a client in order to attend a training.
Like the way you think.
So I don't know how this will pan out, but I would suggest that if we as the town are paying for the training, that we probably shouldn't be paying hourly on top of it, since he'll be able to use that as an outside consultant towards everything else with any other towns as well.
Mhm.
I think
That
that
sounds good, Dave.
I also think that's something we're going to have to discuss with when we submit everything to legal for their consent, because I'm pretty sure the contract's going to have to go through either. I think Primex might want to look at it too, because they're our insurance company, because that was one of my other question points, is how much insurance he should have or what insurance he should have. Because I kind of drafted it off of other contracts we have in town to try to use similar language and a similar setup.
I think Russ brought that up because we just want to have that clarified
Right.
with what the expectation is.
Yeah, because without being a town volunteer or a town employee, he wouldn't necessarily be covered by Primex. So he would have to carry his own insurance,
Mhm.
which I'm pretty sure he does, but the amounts might change if there's an increase in what he's doing or and that sort of thing. So that's definitely a good question.
And the last little thing that's nitty gritty about it is, what term do we want for the contract? Because I know if we appointed him, say, as the building inspector, as per the zoning ordinance, that lasts 1 year. But I don't think we want to redo the contract every year. So I made that separate if the board decides to do it that way. And I didn't know if the board had any feedback on how long they would want the contract to be signed for.
I believe most contracts in town for stuff like this are 3 years. I'm pretty sure that's what the road agent one is, and we've got the police chief here, and I think he's nodding yes towards his. So
Yeah.
All right, that's what I guessed. So that works.
Good. So I would like to make a motion to move ahead with formalizing a contract and agreement with Tom Bay as our, what is his title? Code building, what did you,
Code and Life and Safety Inspector.
Code and Life and Safety Inspector.
Okay, I'd second that.
is that pending the legal review and that sort of thing that it sounds like we need to do?
That is pending that. I don't know how long the legal review will take. But I think that there are a number of specifics that still need to be worked out. And I think we also need to actually have a conversation with Tom about some aspects of this. But we have, for the last 3 years, we have had various conversations with Tom about this. And so I think that if he knows that the select board intends to formalize the relationship or has formalized the relationship, I think he'll be very happy about that. And we can move forward with him.
Is it? I agree that that's definitely our intent and that we want to be moving forward with this. Is it appropriate to do that before we go through the legal process of making sure that we have an accurate representation or not?
An accurate representation of his duties?
Yeah, so we've got the contracted position, we've got descriptions and duties, and then we've also got a contract that we haven't vetted yet that it seems like we would need to do that before we can actually say we're hiring him under this contract. So that's
Yes,
where I think we
wouldn't
might
say-
be putting the cart before the horse
Okay.
here.
It's the idea that we would be hiring an entity, Tom, to do this position but it would have to be pending the legal review of the contract, specifically of the contract, I would think. I mean, in the research that you've done, Russ, isn't the contract the legal part of it?
So there's a couple of other questions we had regarding process and what's enforceable that I think would be poignant to bring up to legal at that time. Because these are questions that the board has had for approximately 2 years now, based on the research I found. And I think this would be a good opportunity as part of the legal research for this to get those questions answered as well. So we can do it all at the same time, since it's all related to this position anyway.
Okay, so when you say what is enforceable, can you be specific about that? Can you give me an example?
So it would be such as the building code. What can we enforce in a building code? What can we enforce permit wise? What are the proper procedures for us to follow? That kind of thing.
So Sue Roth, so we don't really, so the only building code we can enforce is the state code, because we don't have any building code in town.
All right.
I think that was tried before my time.
Yeah. And this
And-
is,
I'm sorry, and there were problems, and so that it was not successful to develop a local building code back then. And maybe this is something that the planning board wants to move ahead on. You know, that's sort of the planning board domain.
To help clarify for that, the planning board would be zoning, not building at this point. Currently, the select board is in charge of things like the building permits. Russ, if I'm trying to read what you're saying, it's that part of the question here is, for example, in the processes and permits, that some of the permits that are being considered as upcoming for the inspections may or may not require additional passage or adoption officially of various codes, instead of what we're currently doing, which is just based on the state code.
correct.
So I would suggest that we let or request Dana and Russ contact legal to get this sorted out, so that hopefully we can actually do a hire at our next meeting, if possible.
Okay, Dee, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think that would be good. That would be a good idea. I'd like to get the code officer permanent here.
I think that there is quite a bit that might need to be worked out, Dave, in terms of review of contract. Dana, I don't have any idea how accessible our counsel is these days, and what his turnaround time might be on something like this.
He's usually quite quick on turnaround time, and I certainly can talk to him and let him know our urgency.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so there's the legalities around the contract. There's also the legalities around enforcement, right? Those
Yes.
are the two,
Yeah.
are the two things that he would be
Correct.
reviewing and advising us on.
We want to make sure we're on firm ground with those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a motion to approve the hiring of a code
Life
and life safety and health person. Correct? I think I'm saying that okay.
inspector.
Inspector, thank you. Can we, let's see.
I would
So
suggest we table that as is
I think
until next week.
that that's what I need to do. I think that we'll just table that for now. And please, Dana, I'll rely on you to put the hammer down with our council and see what kind of review we can get on this.
It's going to be terrible, but yes, we'll do it.
Thank you. Okay, anybody
Do we
from
need an official-
Concom?
Do we
I'm
need an
sorry.
official motion to table? I don't remember.
I was the mover of the motion, so if I want to table it, I think I can table it. Can I table it, Dana?
You can remove your motion.
So I'm going to
You
remove the darn
withdraw
thing.
is what it is. Yeah.
I will withdraw it.
Okay, that works.
And so we're putting that on for the 5th as well.
We are.
Okay.
The Conservation Commission folks that are here, do you have anything that you want to say about this?
No, but I think it's important, and I'm so glad we're following this, and following up on this hiring of Tom Bay, and I'm delighted. Because the Conservation Commission can't do it. So,
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Okay, Steve, your moment in the sun. Police server and the IT contract. So
I am here, and I'm going to have to refer most of this to Dave because he knows way more than we do about it. But I do agree with everything that's been said between us that we follow with what Dave, as he's the expert, as far as I'm concerned, what he believes. And I think we should go with Computech. I think they're the group that we should use right now and try.
So I have some questions.
Please.
When I look at Mainstay's sort of bid and Computech, I can't tell if they're both bidding using the same game here.
They're not.
Okay. So how are we to judge where
All right.
our best deal is?
Sure. So let me put together. I've done a little bit here that will hopefully summarize for you.
And also in your summary, why don't you tell us why it's important to go with Computech when Mainstay has sort of been our mainstay? So I would love to hear the whole
Sure.
thing.
Okay. So to start with, for comparison of the police server quotes, the thing that I will point out to start with that as differences. The APC battery backup that you may see listed there, it's towards the end of the quote for Mainstay. We purchased that on our own for a less amount. So I have, in all of the numbers that I'm mentioning about Mainstay, I have subtracted that out of their quote. Knowing that we have it already, Computech did not include it in their quote.
Okay, so wait a minute. I'm looking at the Mainstay. God, there's page after page. Which page is it on?
Let me open that up and go find it for you. So when you start looking at the actual equipment, it is the first item on the second page of equipment, APC by Schneider Electric Smart Ups.
Oh yeah, okay.
Listed at 1156.89.
Got it.
To put that into context, I don't happen to have the receipt sitting in front of me, but I was able to make sure that the town picked it up for somewhere around $840 instead of that quoted price. To start the context of, they would have been overcharging us by at least $300 there.
Now, my understanding is that when Mainstay gives us a price on something, that price includes hooking that material up to the other stuff that we have, and that the danger. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sort of, but not really. So in this case, they have a labor charge that's listed later on in the quote. And you'll see that labor based on number of hours and the amount that they're doing. I guess since we started this way, rather than going over my overview, I'll quickly cover the quote then, just top to bottom, to explain what those items are. Let's see here. If I can share my screen, then I will bring up this particular item. Need to make sure I've got the right, should be that one. All right. So you should now see this quote in front of you. Let me make that a little bit larger, so hopefully it's actually legible. That didn't do it.
That's good.
There we go.
Whoa.
So we've got the server itself, and I'll talk about the comparisons between the servers and items later, after I've shown you both of the quotes. But we've got the server itself, which is the Power Edge, and then we've got the the Synology disk station and the Seagate Iron Wolf. These are a local NAS solution that is basically a backup server for on-site. Then there is the APC, which is the battery backup, some cables, and so now we've got the backup software and the license for it, and then the licenses from Microsoft to run the server. And then we have monthly costs here. These are purely for the cloud backup portion of that, which is standard practice and how you do things for dealing with malware, whether it be encryptions or other sorts of problems. And then we've got their labor down here, which is for setting up the server and connecting it in location at the police department.
Okay.
So that covers the mainstay version of the quote. Now I will go and jump into the Computech quote for us, which hopefully you can read now.
Yeah, I can
Show
see
up?
it.
Okay, good. And so with the Computech, you will see the Power Edge server listed here, and it's being really slow to load. I'm going to try to reload it. All right, SharePoint is just deciding to be really, really slow right now.
So this 4250. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that is
that's
the server, and then the Windows Server. There we go. It's starting to finally load. Windows Server 2019 and the user cals at 760. That is the Microsoft licenses in order to run the server. And you can see formats and stuff change as SharePoint decides to finally start loading. Then we have the estimated hours and the labor. Now, you will notice that this labor charge is going to be more. And this is one of the points where we don't have apples to apples, but I will cover that in just a second. So this is labor to configure, install, and set up. And then the last one is a combination of the backups. So this is both local backup and cloud backup as one thing through a Barracuda device and cloud service. And that includes a 1-year subscription for the cloud backup in that price.
okay. So so when we compare, for example, the cost of the server, is Mainstay's server not less expensive?
So that's what now that I've shown you both of them, I will go ahead and stop sharing here because I don't have a similar thing for the rest. But here we go. So the Mainstay, when you compare Computech to Mainstay, The mainstay server is vastly less capable. It has half the memory, half of the processing cores, and much slower storage. It's also using spinning disks instead of SSDs. So
Wait a minute, instead of what?
SSDs, it's the kind of storage that it's using. So it will both be slower and using more power in the process of doing it.
Okay.
So the mainstay server is vastly less capable than the Computech server. Mainstay does, however, include a 2-year longer server warranty within the quote. We can ask Computech to change that or include more of that in the server if we want to, which we probably would want to do. That's likely a couple $100 extra per year. The Computech one is 3 years total instead of 5 years total of mainstays. It's
Okay.
also something that in either case you can renew down the road and continue. Mainstay, and this is one of the big ones, Mainstay does not include the police department CGIS email migration. And the Computech does. When we talked with Mainstay about this, and the short version for everybody is to make sure that we stay within compliance. We are currently using an Office 365 account for the police department and their emails. And we need to use a special version of that costs a little bit more, but guarantees that none of the data can ever go outside of US servers in order to fall into that compliance. You would think it would be a little toggle switch in, like Office 365, but unfortunately it is not. It is a full email migration and account migration. When we talked to Mainstay, they said that would run us roughly $3,500.
As
for
opposed to
Mainstay
what
do that.
on Computech?
So Computech is not breaking that out from the server amount. And I'll do the dollar amount comparisons in a moment for you.
Okay.
Mainstay also does not include service plans on the network attached storage, which was that Synology. So if something fails there, we have to go get a new one if it's outside of I believe it's 1-year warranty period. The hard drives that they were using had a longer warranty period on them than the NAS itself, but that's that local backup. And then Mainstay's solution is a couple $100 less per year for data backup. But if the data use increases at all over at the police department, that will actually swap. So because with the Computech quote, it's here's what you've got and it's a fee. Whereas with Mainstays, it's a per amount that you use plus per amount that you transfer. So Mainstays is a little bit less expensive now. If the data use were to grow for that backup, it would be a little more expensive. So now let me go into the price comparisons for the police server quote. I removed the battery backup out of Mainstay's pricing to make this as fair as possible, since we already got that. It would be listed at $11,322 for Mainstay without the data backup, because that's a monthly charge. When we take into account that Mainstay, that there is a year worth included of backup in the Computech, to add that year, including the monthly charges to the Mainstay, brings us up to $12,165. If we add in the $3,500 for the police department migration, that brings the total Mainstay quote up to $15,665. Now, when we compare, and that is the closest apples to apples comparison number, is the $15,665 from the Mainstay quote, plus that police department email migration. The Computech quote is variable based on the hours used, and is probably a little bit on the lower side of this, but obviously we can't count on that. Their quote is for between 13,311 and 14,561, depending on the amount of time that they have to spend to do that migration. So at the more expensive, at the most expensive of Computech's quote, doing the same amount of work, but with a better server and a little less warranty on the server, the Computech quote ends up at about $1,100 less expensive. If we were to ask them to add back in, another couple years worth of warranty, it would get closer, but they would still be under for the total cost.
But, okay.
So I think it makes a lot of sense to do that with Computech, considering not only would we be under the cost, we would have a vastly more capable server for the police to be able to use for a longer period of time.
So in terms of the amount that, the number of police departments that Computech has served, do you have any information on that? How weathered are these people when it comes to police servers and all the rest of that?
I don't have a number of police departments to do for you, but I did ask them some of the questions, and they do service a lot in Manchester, Concord, and they also service all of Hopkinton. To get back to your original part of one of your original questions of how we ended up here and talking with them, I was looking through the Hopkinton budget, looking for other stuff that we were working on with the select board, and noticed that their entire IT budget was, for everything in town being covered, was way less than we were paying for even a portion of ours. And so I had Dana reach out to, I believe it's Neil, their town administrator.
Neil Cass, yeah.
And they had a discussion. We briefly talked with them, and they said that they had used this company for a while at their library, really liked them. Mainstay had gotten way too expensive. So they switched, and they've been exceedingly happy.
Did they feel that they, I know that Mainstay has a lot of people on hand. And so did they feel that Computech did as well? I mean, were they accessible? And the fact that they don't offer as good a warranty unless you pay more, that
So that's based on whatever you get quoted on the server. And I believe they were trying to use what would be common practice, which is to usually say a 3-year warranty. We can certainly ask them for more on that, whereas Mainstay probably included more on that by default because we told them and they've seen, hey, we hang on to the server forever, so let's just upfront pay for it now. So I would not use that as a ding against them from my own IT consulting that I've done in the past. As far as responsiveness, obviously I can only say what I have dealt with them while going through the quote, and they've been really responsive to me. What we heard from Hopkinton was that they were very happy with that service. I'll let Dana and the chief chime in with their experiences talking with them.
What I liked is when I spoke to the owner, when we were all speaking with him, when there's a problem, you make a phone call, he is the one that answers the phone. And most of the time, he's the one that comes out to repair it. If he is not right at his phone, the answering system pages him immediately. And he said he will call us back within just a few minutes to try and rectify whatever he can. If he can't rectify it remotely, then he himself will drive here and try and straighten out the problem.
To clarify, that was for weekend service. If something is going down outside of normal hours, when like you call his office and you get all the normal people.
Dana?
Yeah, I would just say, and I think Mainstay's given us very good response time and service in most cases. And I think they're more or less on an equal par as far as responsiveness. The gentleman from Computech is very knowledgeable, very able to do that. Hopkinton, I thought, was a really positive recommendation from them. They used to use Mainstay, and they mentioned cost was one of the reasons why they changed. And the owner of this company knows the owner of Mainstay quite well, and a lot of their systems are very similar. But I think their Computech is very qualified. I was impressed by what he knew.
So, $1,100 difference doesn't seem like, I'm not that impressed that it's only $1,100 in savings. Let me ask something else. Is the idea to ultimately switch over the servers at Town Hall as well and go with Computech? Is that part of the grand scheme here?
So there's, to get back to your 1,100 thing briefly before I answer that question.
Okay.
One of the things that you have to keep in mind is the dramatic increase in quality of server from Computech versus Mainstay. To help put that in context, if you were to go to Dell.com and configure these servers, just using their online configurator, the full retail price is what Mainstay is quoting here. Computech is giving lots of upgrades in the process and nowhere near what the retail price of the server is for what they're charging us. So we're getting a severe discount on everything server based from Computech. Now to go towards your further point, whether we replace the server in Town Hall with another server, or whether we replace it with cloud service or something else that's a mix, I think that Computech is likely to give us better pricing and or better hardware again for that whenever the case may be, if we are to go with them. However, one of the big things is, and we've just been talking about specifically the police server quote, one of the big things is the service level agreement for the town, which this is, if Dana were to call them up and need some help with software, or the chief or Phil, etc. And that is a giant difference in cost. Dana may have the figures for the total of what the town pays to Mainstay every month. Phil was able to show me when we were up there talking with the gentleman from Computech after that conversation was done. Phil showed me the amount that they were paying monthly just to Mainstay, and I think it's easier to say two things. One, the total for the entire town to be covered by Computech is much less than a third the amount that we pay for Mainstay for just the police department.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And then the second one, which will help drive that point home, is that per system, and this is per computer system, server or otherwise, Mainstay charges $109 per month. Computech charges $10.
Oh my God.
Wow.
For
So-
exactly the same.
For the same service, the same software, the same setup, the same support. And if there is additional needed outside of that normal support, for example, extra engineering consulting time for setting up a server, all of that time, that build time, is also much less for Computech.
Mm. Huh.
And Computech has been in business a significantly longer time than Mainstay has doing all of this work.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
So when you take the totals of the two things and put them together, I think it makes a lot of sense to request that Computech would start, say, in April, and start building the server and put it in when they can in April.
Hmm.
And so that would be my suggestion and recommendation to the board. And please feel free to ask any other questions. I'm more than happy to try and answer them, or to refer or defer.
So for right now, we're just talking about the police department.
So there's both things are up and on the agenda, but there's the server quote, and then there's the service agreement. And if the town does not wish to go with Computech for the service agreement, well, I'm sure they would still build out the server and do it in a way that Mainstay could support. I'm sure Mainstay would find ways to ding us additional money for adding in something they didn't do. So if the intent is to stay with Mainstay for the service agreement, then I would suggest that we should still go with Mainstay for the overall quote, but I would not recommend that route.
Mm-hmm.
Complicated.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say, Dave, thank you for all this work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you're very facile with computers. It's great. It's a great skill to have. And you've obviously spent a bunch of time over at the police department, working on this. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I just want the town to get what's best and save money.
Yeah, no, I mean, the saving money is really, sounds really great. I tend to think that you get what you pay for, but on the other hand, it sounds to me like we're not going to be paying that much less, but we're getting more bang for the buck.
Absolutely.
That's my understanding of it. So
Mhm.
I'd be all for this. And it seems like Steve and Dana feel good about this decision.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
So what do you say, Dee?
Way over my head. I'll listen to the experts.
Well, there's
That's
one
what Steve and I
expert
did.
You got that right, Dana.
here. Okay, yeah, I would say go ahead with it. So do we need a motion here?
I would expect that we probably need two motions, or they can probably be combined. Dana, please correct me if I'm wrong. One that would be accepting and deciding to move on with the quote for the police server, and the other to discontinue Mainstay and start service agreement with Computech.
Well, I'm glad to make the second if you make the first.
I didn't know if that was the way you wanted to do it with me having presented it in the first place, but I am fine with doing that.
You've invested yourself in this project.
All right. So I would make the motion that we accept the quote from Computech for the Webster Police server and the service level agreement with Computech as well, requesting a start date of April 1st.
So
If you want to second,
go ahead, Dee.
Okay. I'll second it.
Way to go, Dee. Way to go. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good.
Now, Dave, did you just do both at once?
Yes.
Good, thank you. So job well done there. And
Excellent.
so I'm glad that we're going, that's really great that we're moving ahead on the police server. That's a wonderful thing. And Steve, you must just feel great about that.
Oh, I can't thank Dave enough for all the work that he's done on this, and he has really put some time into this. His expertise is a great help.
Yeah, it's great.
That was one of the things that I said I really wanted to dig into when I campaigned, and I'm glad I got to.
Yeah,
So aren't we? We're real happy
We are
about that.
too.
yeah, it feels good to accomplish stuff, right? I
Mhm.
mean, so, okay. I think the next couple of things we can move through quickly. The stove installation. So we've got those 2 stoves down there in the basement, courtesy of the church.
I believe there's
And-
actually 3.
Well, there's one big old monster down there.
Well,
Right.
That
so
would
there's
make
the one that
4.
exists.
The
And
one
then
that
there's, I believe,
exists.
3 that got delivered.
3.
No, I think somebody was telling me that third one was a donation.
Somehow an electric stove showed up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
So
multiplying.
Yeah.
that third one is, so so what we need to figure out is what we're going to do about the stove that is currently hooked up. And so our options are to try to keep it in one piece and sell it, to try to keep it in one piece and give it away, to have somebody disassemble it and put it in the back of the room and then try to sell it. Because anybody buying it or taking it is going to need to disassemble it anyway. And so if we have somebody who could disassemble it for us, and maybe somebody knows somebody that's good at that. The various pieces of this thing are beastly heavy. And so I don't know whether it would take 1 or 2 people to do that. And then I have all sorts of pictures of this stove on my phone. So, we can put it out on the restaurant feeder, as it were, and Craigslist. And now that restaurants are beginning to open back up, it's possible somebody might really want this. It's an incredible stove. So, what do you want to do?
So my suggestion to kind of cover all of those bounds at once would be that we put it up for bid for 2 or 3 weeks or something of that nature, and say that highest bidder will have to take it away, and if there are no bids, then I did take a quick look at it, and being that it's old-fashioned, pretty much everything is held together with nuts and bolts. So I can actually go in there and pull apart most of it. I mean, I'm not going to disassemble every piece of it, but I would disassemble it enough so that if someone wanted to take it for scrap, they could. So that would allow us to get it moved out of there, and then we can install the new stoves.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that if we can move it out of the way, we can get the stoves installed ASAP, and then the church can begin to possibly, maybe in the next couple of months. So I think putting it up for bid for 2 to 3 weeks, I think would be fine. I don't think that Dave Richardson wants church dinners going on until everybody's been at least vaccinated twice, so that would be what the end of, by the time quarantine for that ends, that would be the end of April, possibly. So maybe we have until the first part of May to get that thing out or disassembled.
Mhm.
And then Dana call in the propane people or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huckleberry.
Huckleberry already disconnected it for us a while back. So I think actually mid last year, maybe
Yes,
fall of
doesn't the
last year.
basement smell great?
It's nice to not smell gas all the
Oh,
time.
it's
Yeah.
great.
So, it's been disconnected for a long time. So, that's perfectly fine and reasonable. And anybody should be able to come in there and grab it if they win that bid, because they would then be capable of taking it apart if they know what to do with it.
So how do we put it up for bid? How does that happen? Where do people, bid on it? Silence.
Oh,
No idea.
Newspaper.
So I believe there are like bidding and auctioning type services for municipalities. I haven't looked into them. We can also just announce that we're doing it on our website and then direct, Craigslist and other posts to it to say, hey, submit here, and then do it as a standard sealed bid like we would for anything else, whether it was land or something else. So we can probably do it either way just fine. And if we do that on the website with like, hey, we're accepting bids now, and then, you can send out to the restaurant listserv that you mentioned, and we can put it on Craigslist and everything else. We can just point to it. And then everybody gets the same thing, the same shot, and it's easy.
But would you like to coordinate that, Dave?
I can certainly help put up a web page for it on our site.
Okay.
I don't know that
I can
I'm
pull
the
together
appropriate
the
person for
bid.
everything else, but
yeah.
And you can do something, Dana?
I
You know how
can
to-
pull together the bid,
Oh, good.
or the bid specs, I guess.
Okay. So let's say that by the end of, no, we can't say that. That by the end of the, say, second week in April, that would be 3 weeks, say.
Mhm.
But by that time, if we have not gotten any bids on it, then
We send the destructor in.
we send the destructor in.
Yeah.
so maybe it would make interesting sense to, because we've got town meeting on the 17th, and not saying that anyone in town would necessarily want it, but maybe we want to wait until just after that. So at town meeting, we can announce that it is up for bid, just to help make sure that people know about it.
Okay.
There's also an auction house in Pennacook. I don't know. I just noticed they're having an auction. I thought today. I thought that's what the sign said. I don't know if they'd be interested in doing that, or I have no idea, but
It needs to be cleaned up a little bit, but yeah, that would be fine. That's just about 3 weeks,
Yeah.
sort of.
So that's if town meeting is the 17th, then the next select board meeting would be the 19th after that. So
Yeah.
we could announce on the 17th, hey, bids will end on the 19th, and we'll be, telling people who got it, if anybody did, on the 19th.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's see, the salt shed committee update. So the draft minutes I gave them to Dana. So at the last meeting, we discussed 2 engineering firms that Craig Fournier had met with, and who seemed to be interested in bidding on it. And then as we talked, somebody brought up the fact that, that whole parking lot next to the safety building is a kind of squeaky, shall we say, and that the drainage off of the hill upon which the salt shed will be located someday, that drainage needs to be taken care of along with the drainage that would come off the driveway. And so we asked if they would be willing to come to town and meet with the salt shed subcommittee, which they are doing on April 5th, the morning of April 5th. And so at 9 o'clock, we're meeting with Fuss and O'Neill, and at 10:30, we're meeting with Hoyle Tanner. And they are going to be looking at possibly a dual project. There are 2 things over there that absolutely need to get fixed, and it makes sense to do them both at the same time. So that's the update.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, so the big update really is going to be after April 5th to hear what they have to say.
Mhm.
Let's see, the Hopkinton Solar Agreement for expense reimbursement. So Dee, did you have a chance to read that agreement?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so they're anticipating $5,000 in legal fees that they would compensate us for, as well as $2,500 in environmental costs. I'm not looking at the agreement, so I'm
Yeah,
just,
right. Yep, 2,500
Yes.
for the environmental and 5,000 for legal.
okay. I did talk to Rick about his costs out in Fitzwilliam. And his costs were up around $4,000. So I don't know whether $2,500 is going to do it, but according to the contract that Rick wrote up, I think that his contract had a per hour amount. Is that right, Dana?
Yes, 85 an hour.
85 an hour.
Yeah.
And so that may be a counter proposal to the Olivewood people. They've worked with Rick before, and so they know that he's a super trustworthy guy. And Rick said that as far as he knows about the issues in the town, he doesn't think it's going to be as complex as Fitzwilliam was. But of course, he can't say till he gets into it, and until he also, I think that Dave's subcommittee would probably want some of his time as well once you get into the MOU a little bit more. I'm just guessing on that, Dave.
Or at least reports from him. It depends on whether it depends, I think, on how he wants to work and how the rest of the subcommittee would want to work with him.
Mhm.
Some of it may be review of a draft. Other things might be his professional input as a document,
Mhm.
and other times it might be a meeting attendance. So I'm not sure how that will play out, but yes, it's definitely possible that there could be some time there. I would be surprised if there wasn't a similar or greater time request when he was doing the same work for Fitzwilliam, though.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I think, you're bringing up all sorts of things now. I think that really reinforces the idea that if we go by the way that Rick has written his contract, which is on a per hour basis, that gives us the greatest amount of flexibility and doesn't, we might get to a point in all of this where we need more from Rick. And, if we agree on a sum, then we run out of Rick.
So in reading these agreements, I would point out that there's a little bit of a difference. The Rick Vanderpool's agreement is, of course, per hour, which would be the same way that legal would charge per hour. And the expense reimbursement proposal that we see from Olivewood is not saying how the agreements must be maintained with us and legal and us and Rick. It's saying that they will guarantee that they will reimburse at least up to this amount. There's also a clause in here that says that this can be amended later on as well. So I believe that the intent from Olivewood here is to guarantee coverage, and then but not to guarantee unlimited coverage. And so that guarantees that we get reimbursements, especially up front when we're dealing with the big questions and the starts of things, And then if there is, for example, several more hours that need to be done to finalize a review or something towards the end when they're actually submitting towards the SEC, then this is written in such a way that this can be extended. And that's the last paragraph. Reserve the right to revise or amend this agreement when and if the parties agree that additional environmental expenses or legal expenses are necessary to facilitate the town's full and complete review of the project. So my reading of this is that we would be covered, but we're not covered to just like start charging everything and using people to ask questions that we should be able to answer without legal, for example.
Well, sure.
So I just wanted to clarify that this is not saying that, the hourly is a problem or that it has to be a lump sum thing. That's not the way the reimbursement agreement was written.
Yeah, I mean, Hopkinton Solar will reimburse environmental expenses up to $2,500. So,
but I think it's that beginning
that
of the
last
last
paragraph. Right. So if this is amended, so any amendment must be in writing, signed by both parties, assuming that both parties sign it. I want to make sure that our expenses are covered. And I can't imagine, since the SEC is a big part of our town's future, that $5,000 is going to cover legal expenses. I just can't even imagine that. I think that Hopkinton Solar is acting in good faith. I'm not denying that, and I would hope that they would feel the same about us. They have more experience with Rick Vanderpool than they have with us, and so Rick is a very professional guy, and
they've actually mentioned in one of the presentation sort of things that had we not brought Rick up, they would have brought Rick up to us.
Mm-hmm. So they're aware of what he can cost. Although Rick, he doesn't think that ours is going to be that complex, but I'm sure he wouldn't want us depending upon that once he gets into it. So Dave, what you're saying is that you're encouraging us to accept this agreement rather than going with Rick's contract?
No. So signing the contract with Rick would be, this is what we're going to be paying Rick. And then
we're not
the
paying
contract,
Rick anything.
And then the contract with
remember that though. Right? We're not paying Rick.
So his contract is not with us?
Well, his
contract. We can't sign that Olivewood will pay him.
Well, Olivewood has to promise to pay him. So I don't know how that's going to work. So the contract, so our contract with Olivewood would have to be that if Rick signs a contract with us because he's working for us, we would pay him and Olivewood would pay us. So they did say a reimbursement.
Right.
That's how it's structured. Yeah.
Yeah. A reimbursement.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so yeah.
So that's why, like, a contract with Rick, if the town is contracting to Rick, then the reimbursement agreement would be Olivewood and the town contracting that Olivewood will then pay us back.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason it's not loading again. trying to bring up Vanderpool's. There we go. But organization shall be represented. I'm trying to find the payment section, not the hourly, but agreed that the organization shall pay the consultant. And
Yeah.
organization is Town of Webster.
Right.
So it is not Olivewood. So it would be us entering into an agreement with him, not Olivewood. And so the reimbursement is completely separate from the a contract with Rick.
Right.
And it would be I would say it would be fairly easy for us to do the same thing that we did with legal, with Rick's contract here, which is to say that we would approve it contingent upon reimbursement agreement from Olivewood.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's what we're looking at now.
Mhm.
So, okay. So,
But they're not diametrically opposed to each other, is I guess my point.
So we need two motions.
Yeah, it would be two motions. And the question about the expense reimbursement agreement is basically, do we want to accept it as is to use this amount and then go into the revision or amendment of that when we need more? Or do we want to try and get into the details of estimating exactly how much we will end up paying for legal and for the environmental expenses of Rick?
or should we have a lawyer look at this first?
Which lawyer?
Our lawyer. Oh, you mean Doug Patch or our lawyer?
Right. Because this is talking about how, for example, Patch would get reimbursed.
Right.
One of the things here is, of course, that this is mentioning that it is reimbursement to the town of Webster's legal expenses for negotiation of the MOU, not just generic and everything. So they are limiting the scope of that, which I think is perfectly reasonable at this point. But I wanted to point out that they are limiting the scope of what this reimbursement is for the legal process.
And really, I mean, that's why we wanted to hire Doug. It was for his help with the MOU.
Mhm.
However, can we make the argument here that the MOU, gosh, Doug will also, I know he has an interest in representing the town at the SEC,
Mhm.
if need be. And so maybe we should, I don't know that I want to be restricted to just the MOU.
So the thing that I would float there would be the question of expectation of representation in the SEC process. And the reason I say it that way is Olivewood would, I would assume, want to reimburse if we and Doug are showing up to support their bid to the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, they're not going to want to if something changes and we're not. So I think there's an interesting dynamic there. I don't foresee that, we're going to end up going down that route, because I trust that both the town and Olivewood can find something, call it the optimist in me, where everybody's going to like it and want to push forward in the SEC. But I mean, I'm sure there's going to be individual parties someplace that won't be happy. But overall, the optimist in me wants to hope that it's going to be good for everybody, or at least almost everybody. But we do want to look at, or I should say, you might want to consider, if you're saying, well, we want representation at the SEC, would he actually be representing the town at the SEC, or would he be representing for the project at the SEC as someone who did the consultation for the town? Because if it's the latter, then Olivewood can just hire him.
Well, no, I don't think that would be the point at all. You know,
If it's, we don't think that this is good and we want a different and separate voice, then I don't think they would want to reimburse it. So that's kind of that dynamic. The point of the reimbursement for, in their point of view, would of course be to help push the project along.
Well, let's think about this in another way. If he works closely on the MOU, any issue that comes up on the MOU that is not resolved would be something that he would go to court for. I mean, the SEC, it would have to be resolved. I think that Fitzwilliam still may not have resolved their MOU issues, frankly. I don't think that they have
Do you have any examples so I can look into that and try to make sure we don't have that problem?
Well, I thought that I heard, it may be that Rick told me that they went before the SEC before they had even completed their MOU. And so I'm not exactly sure of that process, because I thought you needed one before you did the other, but apparently that's not true.
So my understanding of the process, I'm not 100% expert here, but my understanding of the process is that they would submit an application to the SEC. They would start going through the process. There would be a few different public hearings that would happen. And at the end of the public hearing process, then the SEC will make a decision. The general way that it is done is that with an MOU, that end decision says, this is all fine contingent upon following the MOU, which codifies it as the legal contract. And so it would have been entirely possible, and I would have kind of expected that there would have been at least a public hearing or an application prior to there being an MOU completed and or signed by both. I would not expect that the finalization would happen without it having been completed and signed by both.
Right.
But I guess that's possible, but that would be a question for SEC. But I know it's definitely possible that there are portions that don't require the MOU.
Well, so I don't know. I don't know where this leaves us in terms of, I guess I'm worried less about Rick because he's a really efficient guy, and more about the legal expenses and just covering the MOU. I understand why, the point. I understand that Olivewood would be very reluctant to support Doug Patch if he had problems with this project. I think any problems with the project would have to be, I hope it would be worked out in the MOU.
I would certainly hope so.
Yeah.
And I think that's what everybody would hope.
Yeah. So if they, they're saying that the agreement can be amended, additional environmental or legal, I suppose we're covered. It's a legal document. I want to just be sure on behalf of the town that we are not selling ourselves short here.
Does it make, I'll ask all of you or I should say, I'll ask the board and Dana as well. Would it make sense to send both of these contracts to our town council, not Patch, and see what he has to say?
Right.
That's the trouble with legal. We're not legal. We have to always check out with somebody else. So probably
It
wouldn't
might
hurt.
be good to have his take on what it is too.
Radigan, he has some experience with the SEC. I
Yes, he
think he
does.
went before them one time, so
Yes, he
he's
has.
got,
Yep.
yeah. So, I like that idea myself.
I think we should too. Because we're not lawyers. We don't talk legalese.
Can you do that, Dana?
Yes, I
Can you-
can.
Okay, I think that it probably is not, Rick has been around this so many times. I would imagine that his contract is pretty solid and it's probably had legal eyes on this many times. I'm most worried about how it would impact us legally rather than environmentally, but maybe you guys want to have both contracts reviewed.
Is your biggest concern about the MOU, narrowing in on the MOU as far as legal?
Yeah, well, that's what they're saying. They're going to cover the MOU and
Right.
to the end story.
I guess what I'm
We'll
asking,
reimburse the town for the town's legal expenses for the negotiation of the MOU. Legal expenses up to $5,000. And then a little bit later on, amending ... legal expenses are necessary to facilitate the town's full and complete review of the project.
Right.
So I would guess my question along those lines would be, does it make sense to be worded this way? And what is, I mean, it's a different lawyer, so we can't really ask, what's an expected or amount of expenses. So like, that's not a question we can really ask there and get anything that's
You know what
accurate.
I think we can ask though? If Radigan has any experience with the SEC, he might know of things that might occur that are post MOU or stuff that can come up. Where
Ask if there are other things we should be requesting
Yes.
get covered.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
exactly. And do you all want both contracts reviewed?
Might as well.
I think just from a safety perspective, it makes sense. Generally, they charge in 15-minute increments anyway. So reading two documents and commenting is probably about the same amount of time as reading one and commenting.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. So we need a motion. So
I would move to allow Dana to contact town's legal counsel regarding the reimbursement agreement for the solar project and the contract agreement with Rick Vanderpool and his company.
Second.
all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Good. Town hall maintenance. What do we want to talk about this? We're almost at 9 o'clock here.
I think we had some issues that came up with the voting and that we had to replace fire extinguishers. We've put quite a bit of money into maintenance items with the town hall. We did have Tom Bay look at the town hall, Russ, right? As far as
He did a review with me of town hall
ADA,
for
yeah.
ADA stuff.
And we have a problem with the emergency lights that they do not work.
Oh,
Good.
So we need to decide whether we're going to replace batteries or replace the lights. And I think I'm waiting to hear what it would cost, what the difference would be. So I guess that's just to put a placeholder that this is happening. I did hear on the news today something about part of the, there may be some money coming back in for COVID related things. And I didn't know if I could work something in with the doors or not. Maybe not. Maybe I'm being a little optimistic, however.
Always try.
The entrance door is something that is really an ADA problem and something that we have in our agenda to do.
mhm.
What do you mean, replace the door?
Yeah, and have it a different type of door so that it's more
What, the
security
crash?
minded. Yeah,
Yeah, crash bars and
you know.
Yeah, it should be able to, for example, be opened by like the push button for in general for ADA stuff. It's like,
Right.
there's a push
Yeah.
button someplace
Someone
for
handicapped
for
could push a
handicap.
button. Yeah.
It's got to be X width, which I think we're okay with.
We are.
And then of course there's, opening directions and visibility. And then of course we've got our security concerns with it as well, that we've had for a while. And so it kind of just makes sense to make sure everything is taken care of at once. Because if you're wiring it up for fobs or wiring it up for automatic open or
Right.
changing out the door for different locks, all of those things replace different parts of all of the same stuff. So doing it all at once is the sensible way to do it.
I agree.
And with the stove installation, we are going to have the fire suppression system over the stove reworked. They told me that what is there does not work and needs to be fixed.
So is that the only place in the building that fire suppression needs to be dealt with?
No, we have dealt with the fire suppression system to have it tested and reviewed so that we're sure that that's the only place that is the problem now.
Okay, good.
Several $100s later, we have found that out.
Uh-huh. So what do you, well, the whole ADA compliance thing, the board's going to have to, that's been an ongoing issue that we've known we have to do and we have to do.
Right.
So, but that's a whole sort of thing. And maybe Dave, you could take that up after town meeting.
Yeah.
I would like to also, sorry.
I was just going to say, I've already started working with Russ and Dana to request that we get that information. For example, Russ asking Tom Bay for it. So we would have it ready to be able to do these changes and kind of do them
Good.
sensibly.
Good.
We also have looked into, our treetop garden is lovely. However, the gutters really need to be clean.
Mhm.
I did have someone come and give us a quote for the gutters and it was $150 and I told him to do it.
Wow.
Until
cheap.
I didn't want him to get away.
So what about, Dana, then what about putting that guard thing over the gutters?
You mean like, well, that's a good question. I did not ask about that. I don't know how much that would cost, but I suppose that would be something I could ask him. That's his business. And I'm just kind of amazed that I thought it would be a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, the guy, how on earth is he going to get up there?
Well, he came and looked at the building, so he knows how high it is. Yeah.
He's going to build the skyway of death from
Maybe.
the elementary school across the road.
I don't want to watch, I tell you.
He probably has one of those expandable things you can rent. Maybe he owns one.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, could be. Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
he just backs in with a bucket truck.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as long as he's going to be up there, it would be nothing short of fabulous to get guards put up there so that this doesn't become a recurring problem.
Okay. I'll ask.
Okay. There are
Uh,
some,
So just to go along that train of thought, this is what this is being done now. It would be falling under maintenance. The putting the guards on top, just like with the same thing with the emergency lights, the batteries versus replacing them. Anything that's new like that as an upgrade, those are the sorts of things that impact fees can generally cover.
okay, good. So, so looking at our agenda here, we've got minutes to approve. We've got to approve the accounts payable and the payroll manifest. Can we do that via DocuSign?
Well, usually I have you, I mean, I certainly can send it to you for DocuSign. I usually like to have you do it within a meeting as well.
Yeah, so I'm ready to do that.
So that would be good. And then, of course, I will send it out for you to sign.
Okay, so why don't we get that done? And I know that there are some reappointments as well. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at the payroll manifest. If you have taken a look at that, you all, there's two of them here, which was kind of unusual. One
There
is,
only should be one.
okay, I don't know why I see two.
Oh. Did I put two on?
I see an accounts payable manifest and a payroll manifest.
Yeah, I see. Okay, I don't know why I have two. So one is a pay date of 3/08 and the other one is 3/22. So
Yeah.
3/08 we already took care of.
You've already taken care of
Okay.
308. Yeah.
So, okay. And so so are there any issues with the payroll manifest that either of you saw?
No.
Dave?
Nope.
So I move to approve the sum of $15,050.04 for the select board payroll manifest on pay date 3/22/2021 for pay period 3/1/21 to 3/14/21.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then the accounts payable. Any questions on that from anybody?
No.
Pretty standard. Okay, I move to approve the sum of $13,573.98 for accounts payable check warrant for check date 3/22/2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Dee, did you say aye?
Yes, I did. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. So that's that. And then the reappointments. Oh, gosh. And then we've got intents to cut too. It's a long agenda tonight. Who needs to be reappointed?
Let me just get that in front of me.
Did you ask all these people if they wanted to be you were gonna do that, Dana?
Yes, I did do that.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And I should have it right in front of me, but I'm gonna find it.
I can read it.
Well, I should really have it in front of me, so now I do. Sorry. Good help is so hard to find. All right, we need some reappointments. These I have spoken, everyone has been checked with this, and I do take that back. I am waiting. I haven't talked to Jay Terrazzano Bowie, but I suggest that you reappoint her, and then if she chooses not to accept it, she does.
Okay.
Jay Bo.
Is it Bo?
B-O-W-E? Yeah, Jay Bo. Yeah.
Jay Bo. Okay.
Yeah.
So Conservation Commission, there are 3 people to be reappointed: Elizabeth Janeway for a term of 2023, Linda Clark 2024, Sally Embley as an alternate for 2024.
Are they supposed to be for 2 and 3 year periods? Or I thought normally things were done yearly for most boards.
These
No.
are 3-year terms.
No, 3
Okay.
years.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So do I have to do all of those separately?
I would do them all together.
I think you can do the Conservation Commission together.
Well, I would move to approve the reappointment of Elizabeth Janeway, Linda Clark, and Sally Embley for the Webster Conservation Commission for a 3-year term ending 2024.
Betsy's on 2023.
Yeah, Mrs. Janeway is 2023. And that's just to correct the
Oh, we
term.
missed her last year.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Betsy Janeway. Yeah. Elizabeth Janeway for 2023, and then Linda Clark for 2024, and Sally Embley is alternate for 2024. That's
Second.
correct. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With thanks for their service. Thanks, Sally, if you're still awake. The canoe race.
Well, I've got a couple more to go.
Oh, geez. Sorry.
Yeah. Planning Board, we've got Paul King and Lynn Marie Lehman, both for 2024.
And Lynn Marie. Okay, I move to appoint Paul King and Lynn Marie Lehman for 3-year terms ending in 2024 for the Planning Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I would say thank you to both of them. They put in a lot of work all the time.
And
Especially
the next
Lynn, who
one
has acted as the temporary, actually it's not just temporary chair, but has acted as the chair when Sue has not been able to make it.
Right.
Next one is Sally Embley on the Refuse Disposal Committee, 2024.
Yeah, thanks again, Sally, for that. I move to approve Sally Embley's term ending in 2024 on the Refuse Disposal Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Sally.
Thank you.
And Zoning Board of Adjustment, Martin Bender and Jay Bowie, Bo,
Bo.
Yeah.
2024 on both.
Okay, I move to approve the reappointment of Martin Bender and Jay Bo on the Zoning Board of Adjustment until 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is
And
that
I'll be sending you paperwork on that to sign, and then I'll catch D after
Yeah,
that.
I'll show up to aggravate you, no problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
Canoe race.
That was, I think I've mentioned it to you all, and I just wanted to, it was a new thing to me, but apparently it's very familiar with everybody, and everyone seemed to support it. So we told him to go forward.
Good.
With it.
He's been doing it for over 40 years.
Okay. And then there were 2 intents to cut. So one was Paul Pearson's. I thought we had approved an intent to cut for him last time.
So we approved one for Addie Mock. That might have been that lot, but these two haven't been approved yet.
Okay. So, it's, and the other one was,
Same Chuck Rose. I
Yeah.
can pull it up because I have them in SharePoint. I have to.
oh, yeah, I know, it's on White Plains.
Yep.
I think Timothy, I don't know this person.
I think it's in a trust, but it's the Timothy something trust.
Okay,
I think it might be Wiltshire.
yeah. Okay, so,
But it doesn't say where basically it is.
I think
Mass
Paul's
Farm
is,
lot, it doesn't, because he says he lives in Salisbury, so.
he
That's
lives in
Ridge.
Salisbury, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's on White Plains Road, I think.
okay.
And then Paul Pearson's is at, I think it's at his farm.
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm. So, do we need a motion on that?
No, I'm just informing you, and the board just needs to sign them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
need signatures on those.
okay. So, would you all mind if we, well, unless you don't have any comments on the minutes, I had a couple of comments here and there. You're doing a real good job, Russ.
Notice
On
I'm
those-
getting them
on those
approved as
minutes.
written. Approved
Russ is
as
working
written.
really hard
I've
on
seen the
those
planning
minutes.
board. I was shocked.
Well, it's, I really appreciate the effort. So, I had a couple of comments, but it's getting late though. We weren't supposed to go past 9.
Put this on next meeting then. if you
That's
want.
okay. I'm just
Go
on
with Dave.
overtime.
You're just on overtime.
Me too.
Oh, hilarious. So do you mind pushing these to the next meeting and then we can get to them?
It's all right with me.
Dave, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Is there anything? The public is here. Betsy, I know you. Oh, hello. Roy, you've been sitting here silently. This isn't like you. You're muted.
That is-
I'm unmuted
Right.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, just a quick question on the gutters. Is that gentleman gonna do the front also, or is it just the back?
What'd you
Dana,
say?
on the gutter, is the gutter guy going to do the whole gutters?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
He's an all-around gutter guy.
okay, $150 is really a good price for that,
It-
because the last time the back was done, Bruce and I did it. Well,
Oh my
let's put
God.
it this way, I did it, and Bruce steadied the ladder.
Yeah, that sounds like Bruce.
That was Bruce's
Bruce
contribution.
is not a climber.
Oh,
So,
Well, I thought
Okay.
it was a very good price. I don't know how I believe it, but anyway.
yeah. Maybe it's
Sally?
$150 an hour.
They will find that
geez.
out, won't we? No,
Yeah.
it better not be.
make sure he's insured though.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Sally, did you have anything you wanted to say? 5,
You are
4,
muted.
3, 2. You're muted. You gotta unmute. 3, 2.
Oh,
One.
there it is. All right. No, I don't have anything to say.
Oh. Okay.
No, thank you for
Congratulations, you
reappointing
made
me.
Oh,
Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
reappointing- I think you reappointed me. You better.
Yeah,
yeah, whether you like it or not, we reappointed you.
Thank you.
All right, I would move to adjourn this meeting at 9:19.
Second.
All in favor?
I.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Okay. Good night, everybody.